Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome back. We're up to question number 5 on our 2009 Cayley contest, which just says 3 squared plus 4 squared plus 12 squared is equal to, and of course the answer is a 13 squared. And I'll get into how I did that just by reading the question. And the answer is not, I tried this one out already. Okay? I'll explain how I was able to jump to the answer right away, but before that, what could we do if we were just, being very simple with this question? Well, we could do 3 squared, 4 plus 4 squared plus 12 squared. If we need to, we can grab our calculators. But these numbers are actually going to be a little familiar, okay? Especially if you've been practicing contests. But we could do 3 squared plus 4 squared plus 12 squared. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 12 squared is 144. And we add those up with our calculator, or just lining them up, or with mental arithmetic. We get 169, and we can recognize that, hopefully, as 13 squared. If we don't recognize it as 13 squared, that's okay. We can just, put in 169 and square root it on our calculator. Or we could take a look at the possible answers and take each of them in turn. 13 squared. What was one of the other ones we had here? 17 squared was C. You could do 17 squared, get 289, and say, oh, that's not 169. Okay, so that's one way to do the question. Add them all up, or square them and then add them all up, and then try and recognize the square. Now, if you don't recognize 13 squared, of course that's fine. You're just practicing. But the first, say, 20, 30 squares are good numbers to be able to sort of recognize on sight. It can help you for later questions when, sometimes there's some deeper theory involving squares, but it also just really helps you the first 10 questions, being able to calculate in your head without having to reach for a calculator. Okay, it's a speed thing. Okay, but if you like your calculator, go with it. Now, how was I able to do the questions so fast? Well, one of the reasons we like to memorize squares is because we might remember the Pythagorean theorem, okay, which says if you've got a right angle triangle, right angle triangle there. The sum of the squares of the two smaller sides add up to the square of the hypotenuse. And with this question, we've got a bunch of the numbers that make what are called Pythagorean triples. So these are integers that I can place on the sides of my right angle triangle, and it'll all work out. So, for example, very common Pythagorean triangle is 3, 4, 5. So 3 squared plus 4 squared should be 5 squared. Basically, the next one after that most people learn is either 6, 8, 10, which is just a similar triangle to this one, or 5, 12, 13. So what do these two triangles tell us? Well, the first one tells us 3 squared plus 4 squared is 5 squared. And the second one tells us 5 squared plus 12 squared is 13 squared. Well, let's switch colors here. What's the question actually asking us for? We want to simplify this, so really quickly in my head, I don't need to get 9 plus 16. I can just say, well, this is 5 squared. And then 5 squared and 12 squared, I don't even have to think, okay, that's 25 plus 144. I just know it goes to 13 squared. Okay? Why? Because I have a lot of experience. That is the only reason. It's because I've been doing a lot of these contests. You know how people say practice makes perfect? Well, practice on a math contest makes Pythagorean triples just sort of stick in your head and jump out at you when you see them on a page. Okay? But if you rewind to the start of the video, I read those numbers out, didn't have a pause. Answer was 13 squared. So, other than having to explain this video, I saved myself a ton of time. And that's the sort of thing that can happen if you practice these things. Notice patterns, notice Pythagorean triples that come up a lot. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 5, 12, 13. One that's rarely used, but in the right circumstances can save you a lot of time, is 8, 15, 17. These are all great Pythagorean triples. Or even just knowing squares so I don't have to reach for my calculator. Okay? So, that was, I think, A. Go back and double check there. Yeah, A. So there we go. And we have finally run out of room, so we'll flip the page for our next question, which will be question number 6. So, stay around and I'll be doing that in the next video. Feel free to throw a like on the video or subscribe to be kept up to date, or just leave a comment or two if you'd like to. I always like hearing from people doing math contests who are interested in math, but I will see you guys next time.